start this episode by welcoming our special guests, Sean and Stacey, the Spots. They have set up camp, and I thought they'd be gone by today, and they're not. And they have to be on my filming side, so I just wanted to formally introduce, because I didn't want to be rude. They're here to stay for the episode. They might give their input at some point. And yeah.
I must admit, it's not the first guest I was expecting to have, but at the same time, you got to roll with the punches, haven't you? So
yeah,
Sean and Stacey, great to have you here.
Podcast, like we're clutching at straws here, but it's fine.
We said we wanted to hear from a diverse pool of people.
Exactly.
We've really jumped in the deep end here.
Exactly.
I'm impressed with us.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So you're welcome. Happy to have them here.
You're just single-handedly carrying the podcast. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for sorting this week's guests for us. I've got nothing to... No, actually, to be fair, my skin is not happy with me this week either. So I feel like, you know, when you eat unhealthy and you don't get enough sleep and your skin's like, hello, hello. And now what's the betting? I get a load of skincare briefs through. And I'll be like, not great. Anyway.
It'll help though, so.
Maybe.
I need to sit back. Every time I watch this podcast back, I'm like, my posture is awful. So I need to try and sit like this, because I'm always like this.
Once again, we have accidentally colour coordinated. I actually ran it as an experiment today, so I texted Aimee saying, what are you wearing? And she said, well, what you actually said was currently nothing, but I'm just choosing now. So I thought, okay, let's just see. And so I got dressed and then FaceTimed Aimee, and I stood out of the frame so she couldn't see me. And there she is in her off-white knitwear, and I thought, God's sake.
Yeah.
So I did actually screen record when I FaceTimed you, but I forgot to press it. Just before, so you're laughing in it and I'm laughing, but I forgot to actually reveal it. It's not filmed. I was a bit gutted. I thought it would be quite funny. Thought we could add it as a little clip, but yeah, I know. Once again, we're in sync.
We are aligned mentally, I think.
100%. How was your week, Aimee, with the 2 E's?
My week was actually okay, I think. No, was it? I can't even remember. It's gone so quickly.
I feel like you've had a bit of a...
Yeah,
we swapped places this week, didn't we?
I want to say it was a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but only I'm still going to blame the hormones, because I think it still was hormones. But yeah, I would say this week I've had like a bit of an up and down in terms of, I guess, one, like confidence in myself, but also just like, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, like, I guess inspiration, like, I don't know, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been ranting to Aimee all week, so...
It's not ranting.
No, it's not ranting, it's just kind of like, I guess almost panicking a little bit, because although I am full-time, I'm only freshly full-time, and I think the issue is, I've done it to myself, to be honest, and I've put so much pressure on myself, because I'm like, right, I've got all this time, like UGC is going to be skyrocketing from like day one, and even I was messaging you literally a week in, wasn't I, and I was like, why is this not going to plan? And you were like, literally, like, take a break, take a step back, you're only a week into it, and I think I've just had one of those weeks where I'm a little bit like, okay, I'm not quite where I want to be yet, I have a mortgage to pay, I'm starting to panic, but like things are picking up, so I just need to stay in the positive frame of mind. But yeah, I'd say it's just been a week, because then like the next morning I'm like, oh, I've got this.
Yeah, it's a scary thing to do at the best of times. When you then get a whack of hormones, like you could be in the best headspace ever, you could be smashing every goal, you could be having the best time of your life, and a hormone hit and you're on the floor anyway. So I just feel like it's been a mixture of things this week for you, and it's just had a bit of an impact. Like, we really have swapped places this week. I had a proper wobble last week, you picked me back up, and this week
I've had a wobble.
We swapped.
But
it's not.
How's your week been? Has it been better?
yes, slightly. Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky. I think I kind of alluded to this on the last podcast, but like, I don't really experience any of those symptoms. So I have PCOS, which means I don't really have a cycle, and that's a whole other conversation itself. But I don't really experience any of the PMS symptoms. I don't get periods. But I do have a lot of friends who really struggle with it. I know what it looks like, and I'm massively grateful for that aspect of it, because as I say, it can just completely wipe the fall from beneath your feet, and I don't envy you at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, last week was just like an overwhelming week. And as I say, you know, you can have an overwhelming week without the hormones, you know, so this was the worst week it could have hit you, really. But I've had a much better week. Yeah, I'm just really happy. Like, I've got lots of really nice things going on. I've met someone, which is really nice. And yeah, just kind of like floating in that bubble and trying to balance it all with work and stuff. And I've got much more on top of things this week. Had some really exciting things pop up, which, you know, we'll see. You never know until you've signed on the dotted line, right? So I try not to ever get my hopes up, because I've been stung by that too many times. So you've got that going on. But yeah, I just kind of feel like...
We love this.
Yeah.
We love a happy Aimee.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. This time, like the transformation of me from this time last week to now is madness. Shout out to therapy. Sorry, but I can't just shout out to therapy. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Oh my lordy lord. All much more positive this week. But yeah, last week was a killer. So I feel like I was due a bounce back. Also, I got my very, very best friend, who knows everything and knows me inside out, outside down, did say to me, considering I knew how you were feeling last week, you came across remarkably calm and like collected on the podcast. And I said, actually, I was just a bit miserable. And she said, no, like, you didn't come across that way, which is great. But like, yeah, it's just no surprise to me that the week before I was so chaotic. And then last week I was like much more. So yeah, chaotic Aimee will be back in no time, I'm sure.
We love that.
Anyway, this episode this week, a bit of a different one. Do you want to kind of intro it?
Yeah, well, I feel like this episode's probably going to be a little bit chaotic, in the sense of there's probably going to be like a lot of information. So we've tried to we've got bullet points. We've tried to simplify it down as much as possible, because it's kind of like the boring side of UGC, but also like the more important side if you want to actually be successful and not get stung by anything. Yeah,
so we got so much great feedback on the tax episode, because I think it's just one of those topics that like people just don't really talk about, because it's not glamorous, it's not interesting. But when it comes down to it, you do sit there and you think, oh my God, what's everyone else doing about this? So we basically sat down and we're thinking, what are the other like ugly or like less glamorous topics that we need to talk about? I think a lot of people, and I've been speaking to someone about this recently, a lot of people see social media as like a part-time side hustle situation, and a way to get a little bit of extra cash in. But actually, social media can be a really lucrative career, and it can be a career that you can set yourself up for in such a way that really makes it financially viable long term, and can set you up for real future success. So today we're talking things like pensions, we're talking tax, we're talking savings, all of these good things, from two people who maybe go about it two different ways, or who are in two slightly different stages in their kind of journey with these sorts of things. And we just thought we would chat about all the boring stuff and give you a little bit of a checklist to make sure you set yourself up for the most financial success you possibly can as a content creator.
There's a lot to cover in this episode. We have tried to put together like a little anagram to try and make it easier to remember. And the word that we are dealing with today is stamps, STAMPS. And that stands for spending, tax, correct me if I'm wrong, Aimee, tax, actual income, monthly review, pension, savings.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Wonderful. I was putting all in Google, anagram generator, how could make me a word. There was some interesting ones. I was hoping for something like pasta, but there was too many points to cover, so it didn't quite happen. But yes, we're gonna go with stamps. I think that's it. I think it's a pretty easy one to remember as well. Okay, so shall we kick off then with the S for spending?
Absolutely.
Cool. First things first, I would say, in my experience, get a business account, open up a separate business account, and make sure that all of your spending for anything business related goes through that account. That was something that I didn't do from the start, and I definitely regretted it later. It was so much easier to track everything once I had everything in one place. Really difficult to remember when you're in the headspace of just tapping your contactless card to switch between them. But for me, it makes things so much easier, and it gives you so much more visibility over what's coming in and out of your business, as opposed to having transactions all over the blooming place. Because if you're anything like me, I've got like 4 cards, and they're all for different things. So that's really very important. If you're not doing that yet, I would 100% recommend that you get a business account. And this might seem really basic, teaching you to suck eggs, absolutely fine. I know one person out there will benefit from this. Set up a separate business account.
I actually did that from the start, which I'm quite proud of. But that was purely out of like anxiety, because anything to do with banks, I'm like. So you can actually set up an account with Monzo that has a separate tax pot for you already. You can like pay into tax via that. I don't know who your account is with. So I did that initially, but then I heard horror stories that like people were just having their accounts closed on Monzo and not getting their money back.
Oh.
So I've actually moved mine from there, and I've done it like with my bank. So there's like so many different ways you can do it. You can either do it like via Monzo, if you want to do it with Monzo and like have the tax pot already set up for you, it is a lot easier. Or like I've just added like an extra account onto the bank that I'm with now, and I've actually added two. I've added like my business, like for it to be paid into, and then I've also got like a savings pot, which is called my business pot, which is like my tax.
Okay. Yeah, I have an account with Barclays, which is my like primary bank. A big recommendation from me, and it actually came from my accountant, would be to open a Metal business account. Essentially, you get Free Agent, which is an accountancy piece of accounting software. I think it normally costs like £150, £200. You get it completely free. And what that business account also allows you to do is set aside a pot for your tax. It lets you calculate, or rather it shows you kind of a running value of what tax value you're expected to pay.
Oh, that's helpful.
So you constantly have an idea of how much tax is owed. You can also generate invoices on there. It will then match up payments coming into the invoices that you've sent to basically be like, hey, you sent this invoice, the payments come in, bam, sorted. That's really great. So yeah, I used to have an account with Barclays, and I still am using that, truthfully, but I'm currently transitioning over to Metal Business, which will just give me so much more visibility. And yeah, I didn't know about any of that stuff before my accountant spoke to me about it. So if you're umming and ahhing about which business account to open up, obviously in no way affiliated, obviously, but definitely one to look at. And Metal is an extension of NatWest, so it's
I
yeah,
feel
it's a
like
big
I need to
established
look at
bank.
that, because I've not heard of that before.
Yeah, neither had I. And there's a few different ones. I think like Tide is another one that people talk about. Monzo's another one people talk about. I honestly don't know anything about those because I don't use them. But yeah, maybe just one to check out is Metal Business, METTLE.
Is there anything else to say on spending? Keep your receipts. Keep your receipts.
Yes. So yeah, keep your receipts or scan them in digitally and use the Tiny Scanner app, which is free.
I did not know that. I've got a little wallet that I like keep all my physical receipts in.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so
How old school?
no, totally fine because you might well get given physical receipts, and I certainly get physical receipts. But the biggest piece of advice I would give you is to scan it in there and then when it's in front of you, or that day. Scan it in. If you need a scanning app, it depends what software you're using or how you're doing it. But if you need a scanning app, Tiny Scanner from the App Store is free, and it will take any photograph and turn it into what looks like a scanned in like document. So then you can have digital copies, which is great. You can then get rid of the physicals, and you can obviously name and date or whatever you need to do. So Tiny Scanner app, 100%, and then you can get rid of all those ugly receipts. But I also have, to be fair, a big old envelope of receipts in my office. And also in my car, just because I often, it's like you shove things in your handbag, shove things in your pocket. Actually, I get in the car, I open the little, little drawer, get the wallet out, shove it in. That was something I learned from my corporate days when I had to keep fuel receipts. Just a bit of a habit. So that's a good one to get into. You can expense anything that is wholly and solely for business use. So if you have bought a pair of straighteners specifically to feature in content and you will not use them outside of content, that is a business expense. If your coffee is bought for business purposes, for example, a business meeting, or you're buying a coffee because you need to get some footage of you outside in the sun wearing an outfit for a piece of UGC or something, and you're buying a coffee, or if you're doing a brief about coffee and how you drink too much coffee and so you need to get some footage of you drinking too much coffee, that then becomes a business expense. But that is the kind of phrase you have to hold front and center when you're determining whether or not something is appropriate to feature as an expense, and that is whether it is wholly and solely for business use.
Yeah. For anyone who is new to UGC and is wondering why we're talking so much about expenses, it's all about taxable income, which is what is going to move us onto the T in stamps. And let's talk about tax a little bit more in depth than we already have.
I love talking about tax because I just think it's just like no one talks about it, and it would be so helpful to just, like, you know, when you sit with friends and you're like, can I ask a really stupid question? What do you do about this? And then everyone's like, oh my God, yeah. And like, that's what I want this to be. Because when I first started, oh my gosh, the thought of tax absolutely terrified me. Like, it scared the living daylights out of me. I'd been in corporate for 6 years and all of that was taken care of. I had no visibility really, or understanding certainly, of what my tax was doing. And when you suddenly become solely in charge of it and you realise what a huge impact it can have on your earnings and how in control of it you can be, that's just really liberating, I think, as a business owner.
Yeah, definitely.
So Aimee, what do you do on a monthly basis? What do you do for tax?
I actually go per transaction, and every time I'm paid, I will instantly pay off the tax into my business pot. I don't let it add up because I get overwhelmed by numbers. So I literally, the minute money comes in, I will I don't always pay out like, so every month I will pay myself a salary from like what I earn and save some, and then obviously some is tax. So, but with the tax, I do that instantly, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like when the money comes in, I will calculate 20% of that and I will put that straight into my business pot, because I don't want to get stung with like not having put enough tax aside. I'd rather put more tax aside and then have, like, when I come to pay off my tax thing, I have money left, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't do the same as you. I do it on a monthly basis. But the point being, it's constantly rolling. 20% is going away.
Yeah.
And as you say, like, if you then have too much, stunning. What a lovely problem to have. You get some extra money to chuck in your savings or treat yourself. But so important. And again, something that I didn't do early enough in my journey, purely out of overwhelm, I would say. And it's such a simple thing to build in, especially when you have these accountancy pieces of software. When you have things like the Metal Business Account that will do it for you, it's just such a weight off your shoulders, because you know that you've got a separate pot that you are not touching.
Yeah.
I think another thing to shout out at this point is that when you submit self-employed taxes, you will not only be paying the value of tax that you owe for the previous month, but you'll also be paying something called tax on account. And it is optional to pay it or not, but I would suggest paying it. Essentially what that means is the government looks at your earnings for this last year and it says, okay, all things considered, next year, I reckon you're going to be earning about X amount. And with that in mind, I'm going to pre-tax you this amount of money. And it's not the entirety of the tax you're going to be owing, but it's a chunk of it. But what that means is there could be a situation where you don't end up earning the amount that they predicted you would earn. You might earn less, in which case you will be due a tax rebate. So it's just another reason why it's quite, in my opinion, it's quite nice to have that pot going, to be over saving, to pay tax on account, because worst case scenario, you get it back.
Yeah.
You pay too much and you get it back.
Yeah.
As opposed to not paying it, waiting, kind of, in what am I going to, and then realizing you don't have enough saved, or you didn't think that value was ever going to come back. You know, I find that really, really comforting to know. So again, if you're looking at whether or not to pay tax on account, totally personal preference, totally depends on your financial position. If you can do it, for me personally, it's a massive like weight off my chest.
Yeah, because this is going to be like my first official year of being like self-employed. Obviously, I think maybe going forward, I'll probably start to do the same as you, like doing it monthly, doing it kind of, because I mean, I'm going to be so busy, I don't have time to do it, you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, this is like, I'm only talking like a couple of months. So I feel like maybe doing it monthly is probably the smarter way to do it. But one thing I will say is to create like just an Excel sheet. It can be so simple, and just track your ingoings, outgoings, and calculate the tax on that sheet, because I find that it makes it so much easier. Because then it's all in one place.
Are you segueing into the A of the stamps? Are you doing this again? Because that's
I'm
so
sorry,
good.
but I'm so
this is not
smooth.
scripted.
I wasn't,
is
but
so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like, have we covered anything about tax? I think tax could be a whole episode in itself. So if there are tax-specific questions, if maybe you're umming and ahhing about whether or not to get an accountant or not, what this looks like, how to put yourself in the strongest position from a tax perspective whilst absolutely following the rules, because we're never ever suggesting not to do that. Send us questions, because this is something we can sit and really hash out if we want to. But let's follow your sexy segue into the A, which is actual income. And this is a sticking point, because people often talk about the amount of money they're making per month in the UGC space. But I think people talk about different figures, which is fair enough. There is no like set way to talk about things. But I actually track two figures. So I track the amount of money I sign every month, because that allows me to gauge whether or not any changes to kind of social strategy or whatever are working. You know, since I've started posting X many times a week, I've noticed I'm getting X many more inbounds, or I'm getting X amount more money signed. I'm able to see that that link. But it's really, really important for tax purposes, but also just for your own planning purposes, that you are tracking actual income. That is to say, in the month of February, how much money landed in your account. I don't care if it was because the payment was late. I don't care if someone paid within 24 hours and therefore actually it shouldn't have landed in February. It should have come on the 1st of March. I just want to know how much money landed in your account January, February, March. And then I also track, just on a little spreadsheet, the average. So I can understand, on average, what I'm expecting to receive every single month. That is so helpful.
Yeah, and that's all really like the tax man cares about. Like, they don't care if you were expecting it next month. If it's in your account, then you have to account for it then. So yeah, I think it's so important to do it that way, because I also do get stuck in the mindset. I'm like, oh, well, I've signed for this, so I'm just counting that as, oh, I've earned this month, when actually it's not in my account, so I can't spend it.
No.
So it's not my actual income.
And you absolutely should track that, because, as I say, you can understand and learn things from changes to inbounds or changes to deals coming in based on things that you're implementing in your business. But at the end of the day, and that's lovely, and I could shout about many, many big months that I have, I've signed all this money. I don't see the money until, months later. And so, great. And when we talk about like taking things with a pinch of salt, and you hear people saying, I made, 15 grand this month or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, in which case, love that. Love that. But maybe actually they signed 15 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just, again, something just to consider.
Yeah. And that's another thing that can be like so deflating, is when you see like all these people saying, oh, I've signed like, well, not even signed, I've made this amount of money. And you think, oh, I wish I had that coming into my bank account, and I don't, when actually they probably don't either. It's just that they've signed a contract, they're very excited about it, and it's just been included in that month. So yeah, I think that's something to remember. Like, when you do see these videos about, I've made all this money, it's probably not actually touched their account yet. Like, when I'm telling my friends, I'm like, oh, I've made this money, and they're like, oh, okay, so do you want to do this? I'm like, oh no, I don't actually have the money yet.
Yeah, and like in the spirit of complete transparency, the biggest deal I ever signed was £14,000. I didn't see that money that month.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I saw it over many months, like multiple months, and I could easily have come to social media and said, I've just hit my first 20k month. Well, but I didn't. This is the reality of it, and I hope that doesn't come across as braggy. It's just saying, like, it's so easy. The way you use your words really changes other people's perceptions of what you're achieving. And so I would never, ever have said, I hit this amount, because I hadn't. And I didn't see that money. I saw that money in increments over several months. So that's like a very honest example of how I could have made it sound and the reality of what that actually looked like for me. So just take it with a pinch of salt. Don't let it, again, we've said it 100 times, don't we? Just don't believe everything you hear, or rather, it's not always quite what it seems,
Yeah, and like, me and Aimee will always be honest with you, like, regardless of how close we are with you, like, we're gonna be honest. And like, for like, the first time I met Aimee was like a while back, and it was after this time that she'd signed this amount of money. And obviously at this time I was like about to go full time, and she was like really like building me up, and she was like, because I think I asked like, what's your best month? And because that was a bit intrusive, but we were close by that point. And she said that, but straight away she like didn't allow me to think that was all in that month. It was just like, oh, well, I signed this, but actually, like, I didn't see that, like, for months after. So, yeah, I think it is kind of a bit of an illusion sometimes. Next up is monthly review, and I'm going to pass this one over to Aimee because she always explains this in such a way that kind of romanticises the point.
God, I'm just talking so much. Right, okay. So, when you're self-employed, the problem with being self-employed is that you don't ever have a payday. You don't get the day that your paycheck lands in your account. And when that lands in your account, you also know the tax has been taken care of. Your pension has probably been taken care of if you've set that up. What you end up with is a chunk of money to pay your bills with and to put any extra in savings or to play with, whatever. You don't get that in UGC or in any self-employed business. Therefore, you need to, from a mental standpoint, one of the best things I did for myself was I built a monthly review into my monthly routine. That is to say, on the first of every month, and it doesn't have to be the first, but pick a day, I sit down with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever, and I put some nice calm music on and I romanticize it, because finances can be stressful. And that's another thing I really want to point out in this episode. Money is not fun.
No.
And it's very easy with money to put your head in the sand and get very anxious about it. So I'm going to romanticize the hell out of this day. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, I'm going to look at the actual income that landed in my bank account that month, and I'm going to call that my paycheck. And then I'm going to divvy it up. So obviously I've got bills to pay. How much do I need to put there? Bang. I want to put X amount into a tax pot, 20% for me, in it goes. You might want to put in more, you might want to put in less. I'll leave that to you to decide. I would recommend 20%. Pension. And we'll talk about this in depth next, but not enough people, I think, talk about pensions and how important they are. And I appreciate it can be a little bit of a political topic, but I'm personally a really big believer in pensions. So I will put money into my pension pot every month. You are then left with the excess to pay off whatever else you want to pay off, put into savings, spend, whatever. You might have debts in there that you might want to make one of those initial bullet points as well, credit card debts or whatever. You're basically going to give yourself a payday. And you're going to sit there and you're going to bish, bash, bosh everything off. Because it's really easy, I think, as well, to feel really detached from the money you're making when it's self-employed. You're just seeing, 250 quid come in here, 500 quid come in here, 300 quid come in here. What does it all mean? As opposed to knowing that every month I get paid X amount on the 28th. You don't have that. So it's giving you that kind of anchoring point.
Yeah.
And I find that hugely beneficial, hugely insightful, and just an absolute necessary tool if you want to maintain control over your finances. And you'd be surprised how much it impacts the way you navigate business when you have that understanding, I would say.
Yeah, and don't you just think that just proves, like, as a UGC creator or a business owner, you are literally every member of the team. Like, you are the creator, you are the editor, you are the accountant, you are the HR, Like, we have to plan for our own pension, we have to plan for our own tax, we have to manage our money. And, like, that just goes to show that UGC is not as easy as it comes across, because you've got all these things that you'd, like, when you're seeing it online, you're like, oh, I'd love to create content, I'd love to receive stuff from brands, and actually it's like, well, you've got to do your accounting every month as well. Like, there's so much more that goes into it.
Which is exactly why last week we were saying, well, maybe the week before, sorry. Yeah. We were saying about these gifted items, because if you don't keep a tally of this, and if you're not aware of it, you can really get bitten in the arse. So it's very, very important that we talk about it. And I know that a lot of people found that really helpful, which was so nice. So I'm really hoping they're going to get something from this too, because I don't hear anyone talking about this.
Yeah, and I actually I think this is actually my favourite point of the anagram. Is it called an anagram? It is, isn't it? I think this is my favourite point, because it is like, just, you fully take control. You're going to make yourself successful by implementing this one thing, purely by prioritising. Like, your pension is like, that's your future. If you don't do that, you're the one that's going to get bit. And, like, having this time to actually section your money rather than just spending it. Because if you just spend it, it's just a side hustle, it's a bit of extra money on top of your full-time income. Whereas now, if you're actually having to take a step back, think, right, I've got bills to pay, I've got tax to pay, I've got this to pay. I feel like you're really getting into the mindset of, like, a full-time successful business owner.
I think also, with the whole side hustle piece, if it's a side hustle, that suggests you've got a primary source of income, you've got another job.
Yeah.
Anything you earn, therefore, from your side hustle you earn in addition to the income you make from your job. This isn't a separate taxable amount. This amount of money you earn over here from this side hustle is added to the amount you make from your job and impacts your overall taxation value. So this is never like a standalone thing. When you've got a job, like, it's not. And I think maybe some people, I don't know if they don't realize it or if maybe they just don't really think about it, because it seems so maybe small when you're doing it on a side hustle basis, and if you're doing it quite casually or not making huge amounts of money, it can just seem really kind of small and insignificant, but it's not. It all adds up, so just massively important.
Yeah, and one thing actually, I don't know, this is probably just something that everyone knows, but you only have to earn £1,000 for it to become taxable.
Which over 12 months.
And that's actually not that much.
No, it's less than £100 a month. Like, it's... Yeah. So, this impacts more people than I think probably realise. And the repercussions of not realising could be pretty big, pretty ugly. So, important.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk pension.
I love pensions.
Pension.
I love pensions. I mean, maybe you talk about. Do you invest in a pension? Have you always had a pension? Am I particularly one way on this? What does this look like?
I have always had a pension through like my corporate jobs. I've actually got like 4 different pension accounts on my bank. I need to sort it out because it stresses me out every time I click onto it. I haven't yet set one up for my self-employed purely because, as I said at the beginning, like things aren't quite where they're going to be yet. You know, I'm still building up, and I haven't maybe got the spare income to actually pay into a pension right now. I just need to pay my bills.
It's a nice to do, right? Like it's totally not an option for everyone. Also, some people don't believe in pensions. That's another conversation that we probably won't have on the podcast. I am all for I'm all for podcasts. I am all for pensions. Like, at the end of the day, it's us that's going to benefit from it, like at the end. It is definitely on my to-do list. I haven't got one for my UGC business yet, but I have always had a pension, and I've always been one to, like, if it's been an option, I've always opted in at a job. But you were setting one up, right? Have you set one up? Oh, yeah. So I've always had a pension. So obviously I did 6 months in corporate, and I heavily invested my money into my pension. The reason I do that is because, number one, it reduces your taxable income. And number two, because it's an investment that's sat ticking away long term, and the potential kind of gains you can make from having that pension ticking away in the background are just huge. So I've been very fortunate to have always had that option to do that, and I have invested in it really quite heavily. When I went self-employed, naturally that stopped, and I did then set up monthly payments, which is something I've had to do manually. I've had to combine 2 pension pots. You have to combine your pension pots. I can't even imagine how stressful that is.
No, it's
ugly.
It's too much.
Yeah, so I've now combined 2 pension pots. That's sat there, and every month a direct debit goes out. So when we're talking about that monthly, those kind of monthly priorities, for me, pension is just as important as I see pension as a bill. That's just how I see it, and not everyone will. But I do think that if you are maybe younger and less clued up about pensions, or older and less clued up about pensions, if you are new to the self-employed life and you haven't thought about pension yet, I would really urge you to just put something in every month, because it's just a very easy way to invest in your future. And when we talk about stability and the long-term viability of social media as a full-time job, you have to be making investments in the future. It doesn't just cut it to, or for me, it doesn't cut it to just pay your bills every month and tick along, because if I was in a full-time job, I would be making these other investments into my future, and it's important that you set that up for yourself when you're self-employed. So for me, in the same way I have to pay my mortgage, I have to pay my pension. It's how I see it. And I would really urge, if you're thinking about how to make this a long-term successful career for yourself, that's something I would suggest you do. And as I say, it can be written off as a business expense, which in turn will reduce your taxable income. So something to look at.
Yeah, and also I think it's not always as, like, I think sometimes pension can be like a little bit intimidating, because you think, oh, but it's like a large amount of money that I have to put aside, but you can actually pay in like as little or as much as you want to. Like, you're completely in control of what you pay in. The
way in which pension works is that you can put in whatever value you're putting in every month, and the interest will compound it, and it will exponentially grow over time. So even if you're putting in £100 a month, £50 a month, put it in, because that is going to be worth so much more when it comes to pension age. And I think a lot of people can afford to do £50 a month, £100 a month. If you can't, absolutely fine. Like, but if you can, if you're not going to miss that, or if you can do without it, you know, if you're going to put it in and as well, if you're going to put it in a savings pot anyway, maybe put half of it in savings and put the other half into pension. Like, wiggle it around a bit. Put one into an investment fund, a pension, and have one accessible here to you in case of emergencies. Like, really, it's hugely beneficial, and it doesn't need to be a massive value. I also think it's just quite a I think finances is quite a male dominated conversation. I think it can often be seen as kind of like unfeminine or too scary, or like a man's job, the money. But it doesn't have to be scary. It's actually pretty simple when you do your research, and you can implement some really easy things into your life that will just make sure that you're in a really strong financial position.
My mum's actually my accountant.
She
doesn't know this. No, she does know this. I've said to her, I was like, can I employ you as my accountant? She wasn't best pleased, but my mum is my accountant, and I just go to her with everything about money.
I do have a separate accountant, but to be honest with you, I was just so terrified of touching it in the beginning. I was like, just someone who knows, just take it. But I think I'm starting to get a lot more comfortable with it. So either I will take it on myself, or maybe I'll do it with my dad. He's run his own businesses for a long time, so I think he'd be more than able to help. But
I think that's what it was. Like when I first started, it was a little bit, not an intimidating subject, but just like I was just a bit clueless. So I think just having someone that I could be like, right, what the hell do I do about pension, or like this, it's just really, it has really helped. So hopefully we can be that person for someone else.
Yeah, and like I said, like, you know, this can all sound really scary. I'm sat in my pajamas with my little Nespresso coffee, playing my happy songs, on my spreadsheet, pinging my money around. But actually, what I'm doing is like really strong financial practice to make sure that I'm in a really great position. It's not scary. But what is scary to me is like like not knowing where I'm at. And what that will do for someone like me is I will spiral, and I will just be like, well, I haven't looked at it in a while, so now I don't want to look at it, and then I'll just and then, you know, 6 months down the line and I haven't looked at my finances. So I need to build that in and be like, it's not scary, open it up, it's all happy. Maybe you colour code your spreadsheet and it's pink and it's purple, or whatever you need to do. I
have a pink spreadsheet
to make it feel fine. Whatever you need to do to make yourself feel comfy and cozy and happy, do it. I don't care what it is. You know, so I just really think, I know we said I'm delulu before. I massively like to romanticize life because I think life's really mundane.
Even with her finances.
Yes, do it. Honestly, get that Comic Sans going, girl. Like, get some word art in there. I don't care what you got to do. I really don't. But do it, you know. Just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
let's get on to the last point.
Final point is savings, and I think savings can mean a lot of different things to different people. We've spoken about saving for tax. We've spoken about saving for pensions. We are now talking about having like this, I guess, emergency fund almost. Like, you're thinking about your future. It's for emergencies. Like, for example, self-employed is not like, you don't have a guaranteed salary every month. You might need this emergency savings pot from a previous month to help you get by this month. It can mean like so many different things, and it's very important to have.
I also think it doesn't have to just be like an emergency fund. It's also like your dream fund.
Yeah.
You need to have it there in case of emergencies, obviously, but also like, again, just romanticize it a bit.
Yeah.
That beautiful thing you want to do, that goal you have, like put some money towards every month and like stay disciplined to it. And, or, you know, that dream house that you've got in your mind, or that family home you're going for, or whatever it might be, hold it front and center. You know when you have like vision boards, and you like you look at it every day, and you like every month make a point of saying like, I'm investing in my future self, and I'm investing in that dream and in that future, and put some money towards it. And then if your fridge breaks, well, I'm really sorry, mate, you got to pay for your fridge, but at least you can. And we go again next month. So
and also I'd say, like, for people that aren't full-time yet as well, like if they are looking at becoming full-time, what did you say it was? Is it like if you've got like 3 months worth of...
I get a lot of questions because I went full-time really quickly and it was just the way my cards fell. And for anyone thinking that sounds really fantastic, it was a lot more miserable than it sounds. But anyway, I get a lot of questions from people being like, how did you do it? When do I know I'm ready? And I can't possibly answer that for someone. But what I would say is, you know, whatever feels comfortable for you, let's call it 3 months worth of bills, so that you know you've got 3 months of money sat there waiting, and you can give it your all in the meantime, and anything you earn is on top of that. You're already covered. Yeah, I think it's a good rule of thumb, and it will feel different to different people depending on your circumstances. But decide on a number of months that you want to be covered for. Make sure you've got it covered. And I think 3 months tends to feel quite right to a lot of people I talk to. So
yeah, I mean 3 months was what I had. That was unintentional as well. I hadn't actually spoken to you about that before, I don't think.
So insane.
I had saved 3 months worth of bills because I was like, right, that seems like a sturdy amount to like get me by, and then anything else is additional. So yeah, I think it is a solid number to go by, to be honest. And if you haven't got like a mortgage to pay and stuff like that, then and you can do it sooner, then great. But
yeah, don't go comparing yourself to creators who are still living at home with parents. No problem with it, but different setup. And they might be paying rent, I don't know. But don't compare yourself to me. You have no idea what was going on in the background for me. You have no idea. Just what feels right to you, what feels comfortable to you, what lets you sleep at night. Because also, if you can't sleep at night and you're stressing, you are not going to be creative. Yeah. You are not going to be firing all cylinders. You are not going to be inspired. You are not going to put your best foot forward.
This was me the last week.
Right, you're not going to put your best foot forward.
No.
You're not. And how on earth can a business thrive when you're feeling like that? So what helps you sleep at night? What helps you stay inspired and motivated and makes you feel safe? Yeah. That's your number. Yeah. Lock it in. Strive towards it. Yeah. And it will only like pay you dividends. Yeah, at
the end of the day, everything that we've spoken about in this episode is only going to benefit like you as a creator. Like it's not going to affect anyone else apart from the tax man. But
I also have another point I'd love to make at this point. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, I know I'm such a chatterbox. But like when I'm just going like off piece now, but when I was in my corporate role, I earned X amount every month. And I was really comfortable in that role. And when I moved across when I started doing UGC full time, I got so in my head about having to hit that same number, because that to me was like success. Because if I didn't reach that same number I was earning before, I was failing. But I think that what I had to make peace with quite quickly, and I think I've spoken to you about this recently, Aimee, I'm pretty sure I voice noted you about this, was saying that money I earn in my previous job, I don't need that money in my account every month. I can survive on less. Do I want it? Absolutely. Will I be striving for it? 100%. Will I be striving for more? 200%. But I don't need it. And so actually understanding that, again, why the monthly review is so important, actually understanding what does success mean to me? Because I think it means covering your bills and having enough money to do the things you want to do and live the life you want to live right now without having to pay any of the costs of the job you're wanting to leave. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for me, it was like, actually, Aimee, you don't need to earn, let's call it, £100 a month. You actually only need £70 a month to pay everything. Yeah. Wouldn't that be dreamy? So if you don't hit 100, that's okay. Yeah. And we can still strive for it. Yeah. And I now often surpass my corporate salary, which I never dreamed of doing. And some months I don't. But it's not a failure. Yeah. A failure would have been staying a second longer in a job that didn't serve me. Yeah. So just really, again, if anyone relates to that, I think people probably would work out your number that you need and strive for that. That's success. Yeah. It doesn't have to be your old salary, your old income. Yeah, I do think it is like partly human instinct to like always want to better yourself. Like we're always going for the next best thing. Like when you reach a target, it's like, I'm going to quote Molly May here, so when I can't remember what it was on, was it a YouTube video or a documentary or something, and she was like, it was probably an interview, like when she hits that, she like made $1 million. Once she got to that million, she wanted 2 million. And it is that like once you hit it, you just want more. So I think it really is like, as a business owner, you really do just need to, if you don't want to get stressed about money, like you do just really need to find like what you're comfortable with, what you can survive on, what you're happy on. Like we've both left jobs that weren't good for us necessarily mentally, and we
although we might not be earning as much, well, I'm not at the moment, but we're like, it's leveling out because we're earning in our mental health. Does that make sense? So
Oh my God, yes.
yeah, I feel like,
Preach it.
yeah, it's a big thing to
Yeah.
kind of bring into consideration as well.
There's also a quote that I love, which is, perhaps you never feel good enough because you're constantly raising the bar. And that is just me. Like, I will never, and I think it's a lot of people. Of course, you know, to start a business in the first place is really brave and says a lot about you as a person. And it probably means you are built a certain way and your mind works a certain way. And you're like, just good enough is never really going to cut it. And so once you hit a goal, I don't think you're ever going to arrive at that destination of like, I did it.
Yeah.
I think it will be like, well, if I can do that, then surely I could do that.
Yeah.
You know? And so, but that doesn't have to be, maybe when you get that feeling of, you know, why am I not feeling as proud or as excited about this achievement as I wanted to? Or when you're getting that feeling of, why am I just never feeling good enough? Maybe try and just rewire it a bit and be like, maybe it's because I'm so driven and so determined and so optimistic about the future that actually that bar is just constantly raising it. So I've got a really rumbly tummy. That bar is just constantly raising itself. And that's really cool. Because that's what will set me apart from someone else who's willing to just settle for good enough. And that's okay too, because everyone's different. But maybe don't beat yourself up about it. Maybe just kind of realise the beauty of it.
What is that?
And the power of it.
What I literally saw it the other day, and it's like, the reason you want it so bad is because the future you already has it.
Yeah. And do you know what I love about things like that is that the future, if I guess it depends on religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs, but for someone like me, I don't believe that the future is set. I truly and wholeheartedly believe I am in charge of my future. I don't think anyone's got a plan for me. And so and that can be really daunting. I am in total control. What it also means is the future is literally mine to create. And therefore, what's the quote? The best way to predict your future is to create it. And I think that's what that quote is saying. I'm going to live in a big house. Why? Because I'm going to make sure that I do everything in my power. And I work hard every day and I look after myself and I strive because that's what I'm going to do. That's my future. I'm going to be in a big house or whatever it might be. I'm going to have children. I think that's so incredibly liberating and inspiring. And obviously, as I say, people have different beliefs, but I think it does exist in the future because you decide what it is and then you go for it and you create it. No,
I believe the same, but also I am a little bit delulu in the sense that I'm like, everything happens for a reason. Not delulu, but I am sure that like anything that's meant for me is not going to pass me by. So like if you don't learn from a mistake, you're going to keep having to learn that lesson until you learn it. Kind of thing. So I do think like I'm kind of like 50-50. I'm like, yes, it's up to me to decide, but also I'm kind of like, I feel like everything always happens for a reason, and you always end up looking back on something like, that's why that happened, because this has now happened. So
which is also great to hold on to when like something crap happens. I think the older you get, the more you can be like, this is so rubbish and I am so upset, but I know that in 6 days or 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years, I am going to understand why this has happened. So I'm just going to pick myself back up and I'm just going to keep going. Because I know there's something better coming. There's a reason this has happened. I just don't know what it is right now. And I think that again is really powerful. That's really helped me a lot in my life. There's things that have happened in my life. I look back and they were really painful. They were really horrible, and that will be the same for everyone. And not a single one of them would I go back and change because
they've made you who you are.
I can. And some of them that were so terrible, I'm actually grateful for, and that my mum thinks I'm quite sadistic for that, but I just say, but look where I am, look where it got me. So I don't know how we went off on this piece, but it was really quite beautiful. I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
If there's anything to know about me and Aimee, is we will always have an inspirational quote. Like there is a quote for every situation.
Literally, when I first met this guy, he was like, you are just a walking, talking cliche. Like, you come out with so many quotes. I was like, I've just got so many quite like I think I said rejection is redirection. He
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
for God's sake, not another one.
Yeah.
I just love him.
I
Because
think
I think
every
when you have a
time-
little like anchor to hold
Yeah.
on to, you know?
Yeah, every time we're on FaceTime, it's like I get one quote. And it makes my day better.
Yeah.
Every time.
Thank you. I actually used to have a little book of quotes, like inspiring quotes, and it was great, and I'd read them every day. I love him.
That episode definitely went on a lot longer than I thought it was going to. We literally
I
had
enjoyed it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points, and who knows how long we've been here. So, yeah, that's enough from us, I'd say. If you have any questions about anything we've spoken about, I think we are going to do a Q&A episode soon, aren't we? So...
Yes, I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably do a couple, because who knows how many questions will come up from this subject. Because, I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about, but I think let's just keep it to that now. Otherwise, everyone's brain's just going to be boggled. But yeah, if there's one thing you're going to take from this episode, let it be stamps. Don't forget about your spending, your tax, your actual income, your monthly review, your pension, and your savings. Aimee, do you have anything else to add to today's...
Always. You know me. No, hopefully it's just taken like a quite a broad, maybe scary, maybe intimidating topic, and has whittled it down or made it feel a bit safer, or made it feel a bit more accessible, or made it feel a bit less scary. I think in general running a business can feel quite scary sometimes, and it doesn't need to. We can simplify all of it down. I'm not being funny. Sometimes I'll literally say to people, like, I'm not great at math. I am so good with words, as you can tell. But numbers I can't do. Like, if you throw me a number, I'm gone. I'm panicking. If you then break it down to me, like, I have 3 eyeshadows. I'm like, oh, I'm back in the game. Yeah, no problem. Talk to me about it. So I feel like just do what you got to do to make it make sense, you know, and make it feel right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Count in eyeshadows if that's what you need.
Yeah, and I would actually say one thing that is never going to change is I feel like money is always going to be an unsteady like topic, no matter how far into your journey you are. Like we still have conversations. Like I'm right at the beginning. I'm flapping. I'm like, am I going to earn this? Or like, what do you do? Like, help me. And Amy's like, I still feel like that now. And she's 2 years down the line. So yeah, that's one thing to just remind yourself is completely normal. Like, you're never not going to probably worry about money because you are solely responsible for what you earn. And that can be a bit scary, but yeah.
And also, like, you don't have to run a business.
Yeah.
You don't have to be doing this. You've chosen to do it for all of these beautiful reasons. So then you've got to flip it. I don't have to be doing this, but I get to do it. I get to sit down every month and look at the numbers that I brought in myself with my own hard work and the content that I love, doing the job that I love, working for myself. I get to sit down and I get to work out where it goes. And that is such a privilege. And, you know, past you sat in an office that you didn't enjoy, or you right now sat in an office hoping that one day you can make this happen for yourself. Like you're longing for that. So yes, sometimes it's boring. Yes, sometimes it's scary, but you get to do it. And that is so cool. And just don't lose sight of that. You can romanticize the hell out of anything you want in life. And it makes life so much more enjoyable. So be a bit more delulu. That's what I say.
I love that mindset because, like, when I first quit my job, I did a TikTok and I was like, I get to go to Tesco's and I don't have to tell anyone. Like, it's just the little things, like, just romanticize it all. Like,
oh my God, yes.
Yeah, this is how, like, I've completely forgot what I was going to say.
Do you remember when our first podcast went live and we got like our first few views, and Aimee messages me with a print screen saying, we can't just go to the co-op anymore?
Who says that? Is it Cheryl Cole? When she's like, oh, I can't do her accent. I'm not even going to try it. Yeah, no, I did quote Cheryl Cole, and I'm not ashamed of it.
We gotta fight for this love. Do you remember that time she was on X Factor and they cut her backing music and she was like dancing and she didn't realise everyone could hear her? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I've seen that.
Have you not? Oh, type in Cheryl. Go on YouTube and type in Cheryl Cole X Factor Live or something. Basically, I reckon someone completely screwed her over. She thought she was lip syncing, but they cut the backing track.
Oh.
So you could just hear her and she's dancing. All you can hear is like, or whatever she's singing. And it's so she's not singing. It was so bad.
Oh, no.
It was really bad.
I feel like we need to wrap the episode
Anyway.
up here because we're now talking about Cheryl Cole, and this is not.
Yeah, okay,
this is
right.
not
Yeah,
UGC.
yeah.
We're sorry, we should forget that we're not just on FaceTime.
Yeah, sorry everyone.
Yeah. Just use this episode as your checklist to be successful if you want to be, or just helpful if you need somewhere to look for this kind of information. Has Luna been under that blanket the whole time? Welcome, Luna. It wouldn't be an episode without you. On that note, we will wrap this up.
Should we leave it? Thanks for listening, everyone.